House Bill 1333, Representative Culp. Chair hands down on final passage, House Bill 1333.
House Bill 1333, a bill for an act to amend the Indiana Code.
Chair recognizes Representative Culp to speak on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the committee. House Bill 1333 encourages local economic development while protecting our very best farmland. There are a few main points of the bill I'd like to review. First of all, it allows the Plan Commission, a BZA, or a county or municipal legislative body to require an individual who wishes to speak at a public hearing to register their name and address. Secondly, it allows for development of a brownfield site with the liability immunity as recommended by the 2023 Land Use Task Force. Obviously, we want to develop those sites so we're not using productive prime farmland for future developments. Third, it streamlines the local approval process for development that locates on agriculture zone property with a land classification of Class 4 or greater, which are the less productive soils for agriculture production, and makes them a permitted use. Projects located on prime farmland, which would be Classes 1 through 3, continue with the same approval process that they currently have. Fourth, it allows battery energy storage system, or BESS, to be located in energy enterprise zones, which were created last year under Senate Bill 425. As a reminder, those zones either are a coal mine or a fossil fuel facility. And finally, it creates a 1% tax for a data center. Data centers are exempt from paying Indiana sales tax per 2019 law that this body passed. It would take 1% of that exempted amount and give to the locals as an encouragement to cite that project in their county. I'd like to thank my co-authors, Representatives Pressel and Haggard, and appreciate your support.
For discussion on the bill, Representative Pierce speak on the bill. The author yield, he yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Culp, I wanted to ask you about the provision that I believe is still in the bill that we discussed in committee, which I think is pretty wide open. I saw you had filed an amendment on second reading, but I don't believe you actually offered that. So is the provision in this bill we're voting on here on third reading the same as what was voted out of committee as far as this Section 12 provision on permitted uses?
That is correct. On second reading, there was one amendment proposed, and it was voted down, and I did not offer my amendments.
Okay, because I'm trying to figure out, I thought we agreed in committee that the way this Section 12 of the bill, this new section on permitted uses was drafted, that in effect, it would allow any type of project or development at all without any public hearing and only approval of the site plan if it were proposed to be sited on these particular soil capabilities that are in the bill. So I guess lesser valuable farmland. Is that correct?
So that's one part. It has to be located on agriculture zone land.
Right. So does this not mean that if I wanted to put an oil refinery in an agricultural zone, it's a project or development, it'd be located in these on these soils that are in the bill, that it would be a permitted use and the only no public hearing, and the locals would just have to decide whether it's the site plan. That's all they would have to approve. Is correct?
Correct. It has to meet two criteria: agriculture zone land and on soil classifications of 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Be a permitted use.
Right, but any project or development could go into the agricultural land, right? It wouldn't have to be an agricultural.
Right, it wouldn't have to be an oil, like your example. It could be anything.
So, Representative Culp, I want to make sure, please listen up. This is very important. So, Representative Culp, I think I just heard you say that my interpretation is correct, that if this bill were to pass, you could come in with any type of project development, including an oil refinery, and place it on land zoned for agricultural use, so long as it was put on this soil capability classes of 4, 5, 6, or 7. And I guess there may be 8s in here too. 8. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that would include any solar, wind, data center, housing development, really any project at all, correct?
The goal of this is to save our prime farmland and put developments on the less productive.
Okay, and so I could understand that policy goal, but you're essentially saying that we can put anything on that less productive farmland. Am I correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Permission to speak. Permission to speak.
You're recognized, Representative Pierce.
Mr. Speaker, this is really pretty radical. I mean, this is wide open, right? I want to make sure you understand this because I thought we had an agreement in committee that this had to get fixed before it got to third reading. And when I saw that no amendment fixed it, I just assumed that maybe the bill wouldn't be called down on third and another vehicle might arise later that would address the policy goal. But I just want you to understand that this part of the bill that adds in this new section, it says, as used in this section, permitted use means the use that is approved in a zoning district without requiring a public hearing, a variance, special exception, contingent use, or conditional use, or discretionary zoning action other than a determination that a site plan conforms with the applicable zoning regulations. So essentially, if you're a permitted use, you're basically guaranteed approval. The only thing that is going to be questioned is what will the site plan look like. So they can kind of hassle you about where's the curb cut going to be in the road, how wide's the street going to be, can the fire trucks get in there, you know, that typical kind of site plan stuff. Right? Now, when you first read it, you'd say, okay, well, maybe it says approved in a zoning district, so maybe you have to meet the underlying zoning. But that all gets wiped away in subsection B. And the reason it does is it says, notwithstanding any ordinance or regulation to the contrary, a project or development is a permitted use if the project or development is sited on land zoned for agricultural use and comprised of soil incompatibility classes 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 as identified in the land capability classification system of the United States Department of Agriculture, Natural Resources Conservation Service. So here's the deal. I got a data center, oil refinery, smelter plant, super dense housing development, and I want a fast track for approval. I come into a county and I look at the agriculturally zoned land. I look for these lesser quality soils. I show up with my application and I'm automatically a permitted use because it says down here, notwithstanding any ordinance or regulation to the contrary, which means it doesn't matter what the zoning is. It doesn't matter what land use regulations exist. They're completely off the table. And because we don't define what is a project or development, you just go by the plain meaning of that. So my project could be a data center, could be a solar field, could be wind turbines, could be, like I said, oil refinery, smelting plant. Any kind of use that's not an agricultural use could come into that, and it would be permitted use, and so all you would be able to do is have a discussion about the site plan. I'm really shocked that this bill got called down. I really am. I kind of just put it away. It's like, I guess I don't need to worry about this because somebody's moved on to another plan. But I can't imagine that your constituents would want to have a bill that says their planning and zoning doesn't matter. As long as I can get into an ag area and find these soil capabilities, I'm good to go. Nobody can stop me because I am now a permitted use. I don't think we want to do that. I don't think your constituents want you to do that. I think we have to defeat this bill. I don't even know why it got called down.
The further discussion on the bill, Representative Gore, speak on the bill.
I don't know, on one hand, like I like renewable energy. I think it's the future. I don't have a lot of farmland in my district. You all do. So maybe I'd like to see a bunch of turbines and huge solar farms pop up in your districts. That's general, but I do think it's a policy. I think it's too extreme of a policy. But I also, that's not why I rise today. It's a smaller part of the bill, but I just don't like it when the government makes lists of people. And the provision that allows a unit of government to make a list of the names and addresses of people who are coming to remonstrate, maybe like against the government's position, that's just, it reminds me when Rep. Haggard had that bill that said the government can't get all this data about firearms transactions, and I supported that. I don't like it when the government makes lists of people. At a minimum, that would have to come out before I could support this bill. Thank you.
Further discussion on the bill? Representative Lehman speak on the lead. Author yield, he yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members of the House. So, Representative Culp, I think I heard you say that you had an amendment, and I think there's been some issues around that amendment. Would your amendment have addressed these concerns?
So absolutely. So we didn't get it exactly like it needed to be. The reasons that you brought up are exactly the reasons for this. Is it does have to be on agriculture zone land to start with. The key is for locals to make sure their zoning is correct. You have a lot of different types of zoning, a lot of different classifications, so it's really important that the amendment would have addressed this. It would have actually given more local control for local veto power for the county legislative body. We didn't have total agreement on that, so we're going to continue to work on that as we move forward.
And do you have a commitment from the Senate to do just that?
I do. I've talked to who I'm sending it to, and he certainly is willing to work on this and improve that because we have to have that local control option as well. So.
Okay, permission to speak.
You're recognized, Representative Lehman.
Thank you. I have the same concerns. I think the amendment would have probably solved it. I think the amendment wasn't quite right. I think we have to maintain local control. I think we'll do that if we get this to the Senate and move forward. But there's a lot of this bill that needs to move to protect that agricultural land. Ask you to support this. It won't be the last time you probably see this, but ask you to support it with a commitment from the author and the Senate to fix the issue that's just been brought forward. Thank you.
Further discussion? Chair sees none. The author is right to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just in closing, the top, and I have a very rural district, the top complaint and concern that I get from my constituents on issues is loss of prime farmland. I hear that over and over again. So that's what this addresses, is we're not making it harder to develop prime farmland. We're making it easier to develop the least productive farmland. A lot of class 6, 7s, and 8s, you can't even, you can't cultivate it. They're not tillable. It's rocky. A lot of it has trees. It could be water. So these are not developed lands. The renewable energy concern is a very valid concern. That's why we're doing this, is so it does not go on prime land, so there's other options that can go on and have agreements with the locals to get those sited in the right place. So I'd appreciate your support.
Question is on final passage of the bill. All those in favor, will and seeing is open, vote aye. Those opposed, vote no. Of all the members voted, Tyler roll. Roll call shows 56 ayes, 42 noes. Bill is passed.